But let's go back to the game. So when you say games are too casual and you haven't found the immersiveness in it, paint me the picture of the type of game that you're really wanting that might be doable right now.
Sure. Something like Carnage Chronicles is a great example. Great ambiance, very immersive, good combat.
Can you give a little TLDR of that game so anyone who doesn't know it?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that game, and I'm always happy to mention it. It is a dungeon crawler. You could play it single player. You could play it with up to 4 people. The only thing holding it back is it's limited. Like, you only have a fighter class and an archer class. There's no real progression system, so it's not an RPG. But yeah, you jump into this fantasy world, amazing graphics, physics-based combat. If you play it single player, it is much more like a finesse, the combat. If you play it in multiplayer, it really becomes like a dungeon crawler. It's hack and slash, run around like madmen. But great graphics, fun, action, love it. And it's got storyline. Now I want that, just amp it up. Just amp that up. Give me a little bit more RPG elements. Give me a lot more like cosmetic options. I also want to, just push yourself a little bit deeper into what makes VR great. Like if you're playing a character that is of a different race and you move into a dark tunnel, your eyesight would change. Like, that's something Everslut does for half a second. When a round starts, you get the red phase. And the first time it did that to me, I was like, what is going on? Like, am I seeing blood red right now? That's something like that can be leveraged. Like in RPGs, barbarian characters go into a rage. Mm-hmm. If the screen had like a red overlay, it's gonna induce adrenaline in you. It's gonna get your blood flowing. So like, just leverage more of those VR elements and give me that RPG co-op game, and I'm never leaving.
So for you, it's not. I'm glad you went that route, because I thought you were about to go like graphics route, which we can't solve that quickly. But so it's not about specifically bigger and grandier set pieces. It's not about the graphics. It sounds like it's about those minute things that are emotion driven for you, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's the feel. And it's something that gives me a reason to come back in. Like, an RPG always gives you a reason. You want the storyline, you want the progression. Like, that's like what always pulls you in a good RPG. Mm-hmm. You want to make your character as beefy as possible, and you want to see what happens in the story. And I mean, we have one really good RPG in VR, which is why am I blanking? You obviously know the title.
If it's good, you should be remembering.
Asgard's Wrath.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up.
I was just stuck on Wrath. I couldn't get past Wrath.
Yes.
Now, it has its shortcomings for sure, but it's a great title.
I remember very vividly every time I bring up Asgard's Wrath having to defend it from it being a terrible
you won't
game.
today.
And it boggled my mind. Now, I know why it's MIA and disappeared, mostly because it was Oculus exclusive. Rift S isn't here anymore, and that game with Revive is not the smoothest experience. So I understand it, but natively the game was beautiful. The game was beautiful on max difficulty, which was what I played on. The difficulty was mostly taking away the visual cues that would make combat too easy.
Yep.
It didn't make it like extraordinarily harder. But it took away the visual cues, and by doing that, it became much more immersive to me, so I did that. It was a beautiful game. The mechanics were great. Your companions were great. You could easily sink 300-400 hours in that game, and you wouldn't be done. And the boss fights were brutal and awesome. If you haven't played Asgard's Wrath, it is worth the play. You will get your money's worth.
And what I'll say that really stands out is they leveraged VR storytelling. They leveraged scale.
Yes.
So, it's a game about, being a god, or, to some degree. And like, when you'd go into a god boss fight, you'd instantly go from the minute immortal you were controlling and just, pull out.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a huge impact to that. That's something you can't really do on flat screen.
So for people who are not familiar with Asgard's Wrath, what he means is that in the game you are a god, but you inhabit the body of a human and give them abilities. But during the levels at different points, you will pull out of your human body and become the god view, so you can look way high up and you'll get a better vantage point, see things you didn't interact. So throughout the game, not only are you interacting at the human level, but the god level as well, and it was a really nice dynamic. Yeah, these dynamics are beautiful. It's why I really like VR horror games so much. You cannot mimic that sense of dread that you get from a
Yeah.
VR game that you get casually. And some VR games do it better than others, but like Don't Knock Twice, very old VR
Mm.
horror game. Not that many. It's really graphics way ahead of its time. Storyline way ahead of its time. No loading screens, just one straight house you're walking through for about 3 to 4 hours. And it was beautiful. The jump scares were not plentiful. There was just a constant sense of dread. And when the jump scares came, my God, did they come when you did not expect them? They were so perfectly well timed that almost felt, and I don't know if it was by design or by luck, but when I got hit with a jump scare, like I can think of two specific times, there were specific actions that I did that I chose to do, and I don't think were game related. But the jump scare happened right there and then. And I don't know if it was perfect timing or the game set me up to make me kind of want to do certain things. It was beautiful. And I'll ruin one of them. There just because I don't think anyone's playing that game too often anymore. There was a scene where you're in like this, like the first time you start realizing there's occult things going on, and there's pentagrams on the floor and stuff. And there was a pizza box, and I was like, I'm gonna take that pizza box with me because I'm scared. You can pick up most things in that game, which was nice. And I just picked up the pizza box, and I'm like, I'm gonna take this with me. And I'm walking. I look down at my pizza box saying, I'm so glad I have you. And the second I look down, it turned into a baby, and the baby just flew into my face and scared the shit out of me. I didn't need to be holding that pizza box. I don't know why that happens. It was beautiful. It almost reminded me of like Doom 3, for anyone who hasn't played that. The best Doom not the best Doom, but my favorite Doom. I went into a bathroom in that game one time because bathrooms you typically found ammo and health. And one time I just was like curious, like, do I have a reflection? I never looked in the mirror before. Just shine the light. Immediately it zoomed in. The face of the old guy popped up flames and he screamed at me. Scared the shit out of me. Didn't need to look at that mirror, just chose to. Those types of things done in VR are beautiful.
Yes.
That was a rant, but man, I'm
No,
with you fully.
it's all good. That's how people know we love what we're talking about. I would love to jump back to two topics though. Like one is graphics in VR, because you touched on that for a second. And like people tend to blend graphics and immersion. Like I love good graphics. I think we all do. But people will be like, well, I play games, I don't play graphics. Graphics are so much more important in VR because you're literally putting the screen here. I mean, graphics are a bigger deal in VR, especially if you're going for something immersive and the graphics ruin the immersion. That's when we have a problem. Like Tales from the Galaxy's Edge.
Mm-hmm.
That game, I had a lot of trouble getting into. Not like the combat itself wasn't great, but also like you're supposed to be checking out these really cool, amazing environments and like living Star Wars. But like there was so much texture popping, and you can see the resolution difference between objects in the background and stuff like that, that it really prevents the environment from feeling real. Like when you saw Yoda for the first time, that should be an amazing moment. You know, if you're a Star Wars fan, you should be like wetting yourself. But he looked really crappy. And it kind of just like ruined everything. So I think to a degree, graphics are more important in VR, but you don't need great graphics. Like I brought up Rec Room earlier. I mean, the graphics are crap in Rec Room, but you know, it works. It pulls you in. You know, it's kidsy by nature, and you feel it, so it works. It doesn't need to be over the top ray tracing, realistic stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a really healthy middle ground between acceptable or better than acceptable graphics and really immersive gameplay. There's this bell curve where it's bad graphics or bad gameplay, and there's something right in the center that just hits right. I can think of some like Vader Immortal. Not the biggest fan of the game. I thought the graphics were definitely better than acceptable to a degree.
Yeah.
I don't think they were anything crazy because a lot of dark colors in that game, so you don't really have to go too hard on the graphics dark. But it was a good mix, and I know a lot of people hate that game for being $30 for ultimately like 3 hours worth of content. But like I don't know if it was the first one or the second one. Which was the one that you were on that moving platform or the elevator platform with Darth Vader? Was that the one or two?
That's 2.
2. That set piece was amazing. No, that was one. I think that was one. That was the end
So-
of one.
so
that set piece
it-
was so beautiful. Where the graphics, okay, whatever. The gameplay, you know.
Oh no, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is
the-
the end of the first one.
End of
Go
the
ahead.
first one.
Sorry.
The graphics were acceptable. It was a dark area. There's not that much texture. Like, it was okay. The gameplay at that moment was okay. These droids, you're not really having the dodge. You can just stay in one spot and time your deflects. Like, it's all the sum of each individual part in that level was just acceptable. But together, fighting on a moving platform in the corner of my eye, seeing Darth Vader lay some fucking pound on some droids right next to me. Like, goosebumps on that level. I did pull off the headset, and that was beautiful. Hit that subscribe button to stay on top of the daily clips, or catch the debates and fireside chats live on the main channel down in the video description. See you next time, Space Cowboys.